Howdy folks, good noontime. Here's a part 4 video today. So I'm over visiting the Crowley Museum and Nature Center that is also based in Sarasota, just north of the Myakka River State Park. So I figured since they were open and nearby, I thought I would pay a visit. It's my first time here. Now, Garrett, he mentioned highly about this place to me, and he basically recommended me to check it out. So in a sense, kind of feels like a homework assignment to continue exploring. But the Crowley Museum and Nature Center is essentially an area where you can do some hiking, but it highly emphasizes some of the remaining historical sites and even some farming that provides a view of some of the old Florida backwoods culture. Now, some of you may be thinking of the term cracker. You know, that's like one of the most well-known terms. But the thing is, though, defining a cracker is actually very difficult, as there are indeed several separate origins of the word. Now, what most people, even generally, for the next generation or the generations that are still around, they'll basically tell you that crackers comes from the crack of the whip with their livestock, especially of cattle and even their horses. That's usually the most well-known origin of the word. But really, more appropriate term, just because there is some confusion, this is basically described as a Florida backwood culture. Other reason that people use the term cracker was the fact that people have used it as a derogatory term as well, essentially describing poor white individuals. But then some people viewed the families at the time as very independent and self-supporting. So historically speaking, these people have been viewed in many different ways. I personally like to say that they were very hardworking individuals at the time. They had to make do with what they had at the time. You have to think of it this way. Imagine just for a second, like, you're back in the 1800s, and, during that time, there were no automobiles, no roads, no air conditioning, no grocery stores, not really. They had the bare necessities. Sorry. I had to throw in the Baloo and the bear. But what I'm inside of right now is the Tatum House. This is actually one of the families who lived in this part of the state of Florida. This is sort of basically like a southern style architecture built completely out of wood. It's just crazy to think about, like, during the summer months, could you imagine how hot it had to be? It's just crazy to think about, like, how much for granted we take our resources today. Heck, they even had limited access to water. So pretty much the men, especially, they spent most of their day gathering food and water. That was like their most important thing to do. I believe I was told, shout out to Kathy. She's like one of the coordinators here. Apparently in this house, there were up to 13 children that lived in here. Could you imagine? So maybe you may think like, why did they have more children back then? Well, they had more children back then so that they could receive access to more resources. And even more work could be done, in terms of the farming or even the gathering of food and water. But at the same time, they had to support more people. So let's just say back during their time, laziness was the worst enemy. They were always active. This is so cool. But yeah, so this is the living room right here, it looks like. Oh, wow. That's a big sewing machine, I think. Wow. To think anything that they produced at the time, they had to do it by hand. It's insane. But yet, it's very respectable. But no, in terms of like the actual backwoods culture, they faced quite a bit. Like they started settling down here back in the late 1700s, when Florida was still technically Spanish territory. But then as it got into the later 1790s, basically the United States claimed ownership of the land. But the thing is, even though the United States had this land, it wasn't enacted as a state yet. Because in order for a state to be put into place, you have to have more residents. So actually during the late 1700s going into the early 1800s, people from all over moved down here, whether it be Alabama, Georgia, or even some of the Midwest states. And even then, when the Spanish were here, they were oftentimes chased after by any conquistadors, for example. And it was an officer named Manuel de Vespedes. He was actually the first person to use this term called cracker, historically speaking, in terms of what was recorded. So you could say he indeed used it as a derogatory term. But yeah, they actually have some livestock out here. I think Kathy was telling me they've got some pigs out here who go by the name of Pig and Sweet Pea. That's so crazy. That had to support 13 children. Wow. And rest assured, if you ever go here, you can't feed the livestock. It's not allowed. But here they are. Oh, wow. And most of their livestock have either been rescued or they were actually raised here. Hey, homie. What's up? He's probably saying, yeah, thank you, Price, for presenting our history. Thanks, man. Oh, you bet. But yeah, you guys, this is a really neat place to check out, by the way. I've absolutely fallen in love with it because, you know, as part of my page, I like to present cultural history too. That's another aspect that I like to cover when I can. And this place supports field trips for schools and even guest speakers, you know, like my mentor, Garrett, he's actually done a couple of programs out here as well. So, I mean, it's just an excellent area for people who either travel to or vacation in Florida. This is a really excellent place to understand more of the history that is here and how it really became, and how the state really became the way it is even today. So alright, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Forgive me for the length, but as always, there's a lot of information to condense. I hope you guys enjoyed this cultural history lesson. So enjoy your Sunday, you guys, and once again, journey on a journey is outwards. Take care, folks. See ya. Have a great day, you guys. Take care.